Yes, guys, another episode of Beyond the Posing with the Posing Pro. You know who she is because we do this every week. It is Emma Hyman. Emma, you all good?
I'm fantastic, thank you. How are you?
All good, all good. Today, we are going to look back at the NPC Junior Nationals because that took place on the weekend and a whole bunch of pro cards were awarded. So we're going to look at some of the overall winners who got pro status. So some outstanding physiques, lots of pro cards, lots of new people joining the IFBB Pro ranks. But I'm really looking forward to hearing what your thoughts to some of these competitors who are now going to be joining the IFBB Pro ranks.
Yeah,
So, you ready to get started?
let's dive in.
Okay, first person. Let me just get this all set up because we've got five different categories we're going to look at today,
So,
and we're going to start off with fit model. So let me just share my screen, and we'll get. I believe the first girl is Lauren Lovato. So let's one moment. Oh, there she is. Okay, can you see that?
yes.
Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with fit model. You know, we've covered the fit model a lot because a lot of time we do get a lot of questions about this category. But let's start with Lauren. So there were about, I don't know, five maybe fit model IFBB Pro Card winners from the NPC Nationals. This is Lauren. Not only did she get the Pro Card, but she also got the overall win. So overall
Nice.
NPC Junior National Champion. Well done, Lauren. Pro show started 2026, as we know. The Fit Model Pro shows will begin then, but we see a lot of different posing. Emma, I think this may be the first time you've seen Lauren.
Yeah,
Really keen
it
to hear your
is.
thoughts.
Yeah, really nice posing, very polished, nice and clean. So when we hit the first front pose here, okay, so she's given me heaps of like not heaps actually, I take that back. She's given me some Ashley Kay vibes, especially through the upper body. Now, the first thing I noticed as Lauren was posing is that she's quite well developed through the upper half, and she quite cleverly in the front pose for the upper half. She is slightly disguising that because you can see that Lauren is pulling back through the right arm. So she's pulling the right arm backwards, which kind of like hides a little bit of the lat, but it does give her that shoulder pop that we still do want to see in the fit mold division. I do still think she's a little bit over dominant in her poses through the upper body. So I would definitely encourage her to just soften things down a little bit more for when she does step onto the pro stage. But overall, the frame looks really nice. Now, do I think she's a little bit not overdeveloped, but a little bit dominant through the quads? She's got quite full muscle bellies. So I would potentially just play around with the positioning of the left foot because at the moment the left foot is quite turned out, which when we turn the toe out, we see more quad sweep, right? So the left quad for me is a little bit too dominant, but although it's given her because the shoulders are quite well developed, it's actually given her balance throughout the whole frame. But then put her next to one of the other pros that we've seen, and she may just look a little bit too muscle dominant for this particular category. Who knows? So what I would do is aim on making those quads look a little bit smaller, and also potentially the dance as well. Obviously, she's got until 2026 now, so maybe she'll pull back on some upper body training just to bring that frame in a little bit smaller as well. We can continue.
Yeah, I think this is the end of it, so let's get back to the start.
Okay, yeah. She's smiling. She's not like overly cheesy, let's say, but she's got a nice smile. She is looking side to side to the judges, which is really nice as well. So the presentation is there. And again, we've got another red bikini, Suki.
Look, I mean, she's got a pro card, she's got the overall title. I'm personally still not a fan of that color because, of course, it
Mm,
gets lost in the complexion of your
yeah,
tan. However, there must be three or four now I've seen wore it
yeah,
who've also achieved pro status. So,
yeah,
I mean, look, it's each their own.
yeah,
I think I would like to see maybe a different color because, of course, it'll pop so much.
yeah.
But in the end, I mean, look, she's got the overall win. She's got a pro
It's
card.
not it's not affecting the win, right? She's still got the pro card, but I think it's definitely something to consider. Transitions here are quite nice through the rear position. The only thing I'd say is, and this isn't really, well, it would come in with posing, but the only thing I'd say is she looks a little bit dominant through the upper body. The delts are very dense, which are not in balance with the glute development for me. So what I would do is again just try and play around with the pose. So maybe the delts look slightly less thick and dominant. So I play around with the hand position, maybe the elbow position as well, just to really try and just ensure that the glutes were the most prominent part of this rear position. She transitions, nice transitions here, really nice and smooth. She moves with ease around the stage. The footwork is nice. The presentation is good.
Yeah, I really like that. I know one thing I always talk about is the eye contact as well,
Yeah,
mainly because we know with the fit model division, you're on stage for a very short time when it comes to your routines because there's no transition. So therefore, you want to hopefully keep that attention from on the judges. Obviously it'll be on
yeah,
your times, but make sure they remember you. And these little things where sometimes some of the other girls have not delivered it in regards to eye contact, not just one judge, but across all of them, just does bring out that personality a little bit more, brings the judges into your perspective. I thought it was a really, really good look.
yeah. I think it's a really good look as well. The presentation, the more I'm watching it, the more I'm enjoying it. And you're right, like she's smiling and connecting with the judges, which is just such a huge part of not just the fit model division, but all divisions. You know, the more stagecraft you have, the more stage presence you have, which makes you stand out to the judges. And that's what you want. You want to be eye catching.
So talk about eye catching. What rating are we giving her through the Protein Pro?
I am going to go with, I'm going to give an A minus because I feel like the posing corrections are more physique corrections. It's clean. Is it the most presented that we've seen? No, but it's clean and it's concise, and I like that style of posing.
I think really the one thing people could take away, if they are slightly quad dominant, is exactly what you mentioned about the foot placement. We're looking at the left leg, maybe just twisting that to avoid showcasing that quad sweep. So
Yeah,
I think that's something that a lot of people could take from if they are dominant in that area.
absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, now we're gonna go over to wellness. And this is Sabrina. So I've seen this Sabrina before. She missed out on a pro card last year. She has a very huge following and she took the overall in the wellness division as well as the IFBB Pro Card because she also missed the Miss Bikini Olympia champion Laura Lee, congratulating
Yeah.
her. So she was well, actually I did a post maybe yesterday or the day before, but saying that she was one of the standouts of a show when I look at physique perspective as well for the category. But look, wellness, we've started to look at all divisions. Let's look at the new overall wellness winner, the new Ivy Pro. What's your thoughts about Sabrina?
Really lovely physique, like, well, very impressive physique for the wellness division. Um, the front pose looks really good. We can see fullness and thickness through the quads. As she transitions, I mean, the rear pose looks sensational. There's a really nice taper through the waist. The glute shot looks good. The only thing I don't like is that little shift in the feet there. So
Okay.
after, we just need to make sure definitely at this level of competing, you need to make sure that your transitions are flawless. So, as if there's ever any sticking points or moments where it doesn't feel fluid, you just don't want to like twist and pivot on the feet. It makes your presentation look unfinished. Or so maybe I don't know, maybe she messed up slightly on stage and she just thought, oh, I'm just going to just switch into that side pose. Maybe that happened and it does happen on stage. So if it does, you just cover it up and you keep moving, which if that did, well done, she kept it moving. But if that is part of the routine, then it definitely needs cleaning a little bit more to get a nice smooth transition from the back into the side pose. The front pose, I wouldn't really change an awful lot. She's very quad focused with the front pose. So you see some of the wellness girls twisting the back hip away from the judges just a touch to give a little bit more of the glute, but she's really showcasing the quads. So I don't think this is detrimental because she's got a really nice taper, and also she's got really nicely developed shoulder caps. So we've
Yeah.
got that bubble and pop through the delts, which gives you that nice taper, which then gives you the balance between the quads and the shoulders as well. So you kind of get that overall look that we're looking for in wellness. In the glute shots, I would like to see, so when we go around to the rear and also when we come back from the front, the glute shots, I feel like the top of the glute is just a little bit flat. So what I would do is explore different foot positions in the glute shot before we step to the rear, just to make sure that the glutes look as round and as full as they do in the front pose and also in the rear pose here as well. Just to make sure we're just, having congruency throughout the physique when we're moving around the stage. Rear position looks very impressive. I mean, the physique speaks for itself, right? So here, yeah, there's that little shift there that I just don't
Yeah.
like. So I find a lot of athletes can struggle with this transition back around to the side because essentially you're moving back on yourselves. And the easiest thing to do and the least complex thing to do is to just step. So you can do your glute shot, you do 3 small steps, 1, 2, 3, and you're in that side pose. So it's just, I think, iron out the footwork. In this side pose, I do feel like the glute looks a little bit flat compared to how it looks in the rest of the poses. So I would again play around with this just to see if we can either create more taper by potentially manipulating the shoulder position, the lat position, or seeing if I would maybe play around with the right foot, the front foot. Can I change the angle and will that activate the glute? Because obviously we're all made differently, right? So when it comes to muscles, origins, insertions, how we're shaped, different activations will make people's muscles look different. So could I potentially just change around or play around with the right foot position to give more shape through the highest part of the glute there? Do we need to arch through the lower back a touch more? So I play around with a few things just to see if we could just bring a little bit more volume to the glute on this side pose.
Are you happy in regards to the up half? So we know obviously we can't see too much of the left shoulder. So could she twist more around, or was that caused because of a little mishap in getting her foot
It could
placement?
be because, and this is why we want to make sure that we always reset our footwork, whether it's for a transition, whether it's for a pose, because you want to make sure your feet are exactly where you want them to be in order to execute the pose correctly. I will agree that on the upper body, we're not getting that thoracic rotation to bring that top line. We want to square these shoulders off to the judges a little bit more, but we want to do that without sacrificing the taper of the waist. I typically find that on this side, a lot of athletes are more restricted through the thoracic rotation. So it means that they actually can't bring the upper body around to the front. So this may have played a part, or we just need to make sure that we are working through the thoracic rotation and we are bringing those shoulders around to the judges. This looks really nice. And even that little transition before we walked off stage, she had a much better side pose position on the lower half. So if we just watch when it comes back round. So here on this next transition, just pay attention to how the glute looks after this. Here, she's got more shelf there in that last transition. So it tells me that if we change the positioning, she'll probably have a much better side pose.
Okay. So what we're giving Sabrina, we're giving the new IF Pro in the Wells division.
Sabrina, I am going to give her a solid. I'm going to go with a B minus because the
Okay.
front pose and the rear pose looks really good. Can we clean up on transitions? I think so. And can we make that side pose a little bit better as well?
And look, the physique is all there. That's why she won the overall title. Phenomenal look and
Insane.
yeah, really well deserved. Super excited to see what you do in the pro ranks. Okay, next up. Why can't I? There we go. Let's go on to the next person. Okay, we're into the figure division. So, figure division. Oh God, what's that? I just completely forgot her name. Where is it? Let me just go back to the top so I don't give you the wrong name. There we go. Ebony Jeffries. Ebony Jeffries. So she is the figure, new figure IFBB Pro, and also overall winner from the NPC Junior Nationals. So yeah, I think definitely a clear winner when I looked at the other girls who also won a pro card winning their class. But I did feel that yeah, this one was very much well deserved to win that overall title. It's a very prestigious overall title over in the States. So figure. I know we looked at a figure girl last week for the Pro Classic, and that was probably on the posing perspective the one that really needed the most improvements, but had a phenomenal shape. I'm keen
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts about this one.
Yeah, again, really, really beautiful structure. Um, so I'll just wait until we come back around to the front. But the presentation and the flow is nice. There's definitely some improvements to just create a much fuller and a physique with more volume. So we can pause on this first front position. Amazing. Okay, so what we always need to make sure of is that whenever we are presenting the lats, is that the arms don't try and present the lats for us. On the left arm, the elbow is too high, and it's taken away the connection between the top of the lat, the back of the tricep, and the shoulder. So we're actually flattening off the density and the volume of the left shoulder. And of course, we need to see as much of this as possible, especially in the figure division. So firstly, there's that both of the delts are slightly rounded inwards. And so we just want to always focus on the shoulders being the highest, widest point of the frame. So we've got to make sure we can see those delts as big as they are. Yeah. So that means it will just create more of that V taper because the shoulders round out, the lats come out, and then the waist comes in. Through the lower half, this is obviously a really common figure position, but what I see a lot of, which is happening here, is the front foot is crossing over too
Right.
much. When that happens, you're covering the back leg. So what are you covering? You're covering your quad. You're covering the fact that the waist comes in, the hips and the glutes go out, and then the quads should maintain a level of balance before we then see them come into one line from the shins down to the ankle. So what I would do is shift this front foot over so it's slightly more central to the back one. Really make sure that we were externally rotating through the quads and also engaging the left glute. Engaging the left glute is going to switch on all the detail through the left quad.
Okay, let's turn to the rear.
Yes, beautiful smile though. Really nice. And she's got really nice flow. So I would maybe just execute a little bit more of a transition, have
Yeah.
a little bit more of a moment. Obviously, we get that transitional pose where we step back, but maybe a little bit more of a glute shot and linger the eye contact with the judges a little bit more before we step towards the rear. Now, rear position. Let's look at these delts. Look how impressive they look. This is what we should be seeing through the front pose that she presented. So the delts look sensational. This is what I would call a 3D top line, which means that we can see the front of the delts when she's facing the back, which is super important because it showcases the volume and the density. Elbows might be just a little bit too high just for my liking. I like the tricep to really rest on the top of the lat. So I would just drop the elbows down a touch, taper through the waist, looks incredible. We can see there's a lovely amount of thickness through the erectors as well, which I always think is super impressive. Through the lower half, the foot positioning is good. Sometimes we see a lot in the figure division that people really turn the toes out. It's a little bit old school. It's not what we want to be doing now, especially in the NPC IFBB division. So she's got quads externally rotated, which means and allows us to see quad sweep from the rear. What we're just not seeing enough of is a little bit more condition through the bottom of the glutes into the hamstring tie-in, into the adductors as well. So I would really have encouraged her to arch through the lower back and stretch through the hamstrings, have that RDL feeling so we can have what you want to think about with the hamstrings and that hamstring glute tie-in. Imagine you've got an elastic band and you pull that elastic band as far as it can stretch and then you hold it there. That's how we should be feeling with the hamstrings to showcase that condition. And there's more condition there than we're seeing.
Okay, let's go back to the front to finish off.
Nice arm. I would have given a slightly different, more finished transition as well, maybe just stepping backwards into a glute shot and then transitioning around to the front. So we are mirroring the pose that we did at the beginning on the opposite side. And typically we tend to find that someone has a side that is much stronger, that feels a lot more natural. And I would usually recommend that if you are going to showcase an alternative pose, you just show the strongest side all of the time. Now, I'm not saying that this side isn't strong, but we could definitely execute the pose a lot better. Again, we can see that front foot is slightly too crossed over. So we're losing the back quad and we're actually losing the external rotation through the front quad as well. We're overarching through the lower back into the spine, which throws off the waist. It makes the waist a little bit thicker. So I'd like to see a little bit more control over the spine, over the core as well. So we're not pushing out through the midsection and the ribs. And again, that will just set up the lower half into position a little bit better. We don't want to arch through the lower back. We want to squeeze that front glute, externally rotate through the front of the quad, and then that'll just give us that nice overall flow to the physique. Again, losing the delts a little bit in this front pose, which is rare because typically we see athletes showcasing their delts really nicely in the front, but losing them in the rear. And it's kind of the opposite way round for this particular athlete.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll just watch it one more time in real time. But I think one of the big things you pointed out was to really add some transitions into it, just to give the pose a bit more character, more personality. And we just see how she goes all up, happy days. But you know,
Nice.
smiling throughout, which obviously we know is a big thing.
Constantly smiling, connecting. She's looking side to side. The flow looks really, I like the consistency of the arms. The arms
Yeah.
look supernatural as she's moving and transitioning. And that rear pose, the upper body looks so impressive. I can see the reason why I know she's more conditioned because as she's moving and transitioning, I can see detail popping through on the legs. Even when she does that little heel flick at the end, there's detail there. So at the moment, we're just not activating it in the poses, which is a little bit of a shame.
I'm also looking at her feet as well. It's very small movements. It's not like she's going from one side. It's very much just. I'm looking here as well, just a little twist as well. So she's not moving around too much. Is that something that what
So I
do
yeah,
more?
so obviously you can see the square on
Yeah,
underneath the feet. Now, typically I always say to my athletes when someone starts to take really big steps and they're traveling too much away from themselves, I say imagine you're stood on a square and you cannot step off that square. So all of your footwork needs to happen underneath you. So the footwork is remaining underneath her, but she's almost kept it so tight that it's slightly hindering her in the transitions.
yeah.
So we kind of need to find a little bit of a happy balance where we can step away, but then we come back to our center point. So we can move a little bit more, not big steps, really small. That just allows you to have a little bit more fluidity through those transitions. I don't dislike it. I just think we can just make a little bit more of the footwork to use in the transitions.
Okay, what's the posing pro rating then?
I am going to go with I think I'm going to go C plus,
Oh yeah, I've seen
only
that.
because the physique is insane. The presentation is really nice, but I feel like some changes could completely change the physique.
Which is the stuff that you love to get
I
involved
love
in.
to do.
When the
I
physique
love
is
to
world
do that.
class, you could take a C plus to well a few
In a
grades.
30-minute session, I could take it from a C plus up to an A easily because the physique is there. And that's the beauty of when you see an athlete like this, the smallest corrections can just completely make the physique come alive.
And that's what's going to be needed in the pro ranks. Your physique
Yeah.
got you the pro card. Huge, well done. On to the pro show. These kinds of differences are going to make the difference when it comes to those placings. Let's go over to, and oh God, I completely forgot this girl's name as well. Let me just go up because we're on to the bikini side. Martina.
Martina.
Okay. Martina. So let me just bring up a video. So, Martina, as we always know, bikini is always the busiest category. Once again, I think it was 7 Ivy Pro Card winners in the bikini division. That was all the class winners. So, Martina was one of the class winners, went to the overall, and she is also your overall champion. I believe she's the overall champion. So, Martina, new Ivy Pro. Really keen out. Really
Yeah.
keen to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah. Really nice, beautiful physique. Execution and flow, look at those arms, they're so continuous. She's taking her time, she's not rushing. The only thing, one of the main poses that I've pinpointed already is this rear pose.
Okay, I'll
And
come
in that
through.
rear pose, when it comes back round, we'll pause it. But in the rear position, what's happening is the elbows are quite wide. So it makes the waist look a little bit thicker. So I think we've commented on this a couple of times before, but it's really important that the elbows around the waist, they're like small diamond windows. So what I would do is just bring in the arms potentially a little bit. Yeah, look how wide those elbows are.
Yeah.
So I'd bring the hands lower, and we actually shouldn't really see anything of the wrist, or definitely not really any jewelry on the wrist either in this rear pose. And because I can see it, I know that the fingers are too wide, the elbows are too wide as well. So we need to drop the hands lower, bring them inward slightly. That's going to drop the elbows down, and then we start to pin the elbows behind the body, which is going to really close that gap between the elbow and the waist.
Okay, let me go back to the front. Go.
Nice through these transitions. The waist looks so small in this front pose. So if we just pause that when we come back to the front pose, if we
That's
just pause it, the transition here as we come in. So as Martina hits that first transition where she sets up for the front pose, we're just seeing a little bit too much of the waist, which can kind of make the glutes look a little bit smaller. So what I would encourage is when you do that first transition, show the glutes to the judges a little bit more and twist the upper body away from the judges. So we'll just wait for Martina to come back in if possible, Silky, just so we
Okay,
can look
one
at that
second.
first transition. So just notice when we come in for the transition, I see a lot of the torso here, too much. I want to see more of the glute in the back in that first transition. Now, this front facing pose, pay attention to the foot placement of the right foot because we see lots of different variations of the front foot positioning, and it really comes down to what puts your lower half, your front leg and your front glute in the best position possible for this criteria. Now, we know in this criteria, we want to see heaps of glute volume. We want to see not loads of quad development, but balance, and we do want to see a little bit of hamstring as well. So playing around with the foot position can either size down the quad, size up the quad. It can give you a little bit more hamstring into glute. So it's really about playing around with your foot position to make sure you are showcasing the judges your best angle possible. And this is different for everyone. The waist looks really small. You can see that, she's got clear lats and delts, but I think that adds to the tape of the waist because for me, she doesn't look out of balance between upper and lower. This transitional pose looks really good. The glute is very dominant there. Glutes staying pretty much lifted. So in this rear position as well, we've got that nice hamstring to glute tie in. We can really see those V-tips at the bottom of the glutes and we can see the adductors as well, which is fantastic. It's just about fixing that upper frame so it matches the lower and it flows a little bit more. Transition arms, nice and fluid. Really nice. She's smiling, she's connecting. She looks like she's really having a lovely time up there. So I really, really enjoyed this presentation.
Yeah. Really
Nice
like
little
it.
flick. And very subtle as well. Like she's not overdoing it. She's not a massive, big, smiley, she feels like it's very authentic to her and her personality. I don't know her, but it's again, it's not too much. And at the end, there's like a little cheeky shoulder, little heel flick, eyes flicking down, eyes flicking up. All these little moments really, really matter. So as an amateur, I would be kind of like I would be not critiquing, but really looking at the girls to see what they're doing with their faces because it's part of your presentation, right?
The only thing I probably would bring up, and this is a very, very small thing, but if we go back to the start, when she first makes her entrance, of course, that's the first time the judges are going to see her. As she's getting to the center, you can see her eyes drop to looking at the square, which of course, I mean, look, there he is,
Yeah, yeah,
looking right
yeah.
down. And this is
Yeah,
at this point is when the judges are going to see you for the very first time. Maybe I
yeah.
guess the one I could get away with was at the end when she turned back around and she did look down. Understandable, the judges have seen the front and the back pose, but this is the first front pose you're going to hit. And what's your thoughts? Should the eyes really drop at that point?
So I wouldn't drop the eyes. I don't know if it was intentional or if she was just looking at the spot on the stage. I mean, you shouldn't really need to look at it because you are walking into it. But what I do notice throughout the pose, and there is moments where she uses the eyes to look down and flick up. So maybe that was the purpose at the beginning because we see it quite a lot here, and it does look like she's looking down at her spot. So I would just say maybe don't do it immediately when you walk in, and definitely the first one is different because the chin drops. So
Exactly,
the
she is
head's
looking
dropped.
down.
Yeah. It's not just the eyes. So I would just be mindful of that. Try and stay eyes up and connected, and then start to use the eyes to connect with the judges as you start to move through your transitions.
Definitely. So, look, phenomenal look in the end. If you win the overall title at the NPC Nationals, you are destined to do something great. So, well done to Martina. What is your the opposing pro rating for her?
I am going to go with a B minus just because of those little areas on the first transition and on that rear pose as well. And also, like you noted as well, just dropping that chin down as we're setting up into that as we're setting up into that first front position.
Yeah, and the reason why I've kind of brought the drop of the chin is a lot of times we want to see that the confidence that you know exactly what you're doing. This second nature. So when the moment the chin drops, maybe that just does drop. To say, is that a little
And
bit
it's
more
it's
confident?
it's it's almost like you drop out of character for a moment. It's like she's there, and then I'm back on, and I'm smiling. We need to just maintain that character from there should be no off moment on stage. And as you're walking in, you can flick your eyes down. You can see the X. I mean, it's not hard to see. So you should just be able to just step straight on into there. But what I will say is this stage looks like it's like a felt or a carpet,
Yeah,
which isn't the easiest to walk on or
yeah,
move on.
good
So
point.
maybe she was just being a little bit hazardous as she's stepping into that front square. Why they do that to us, I don't know.
Well,
It is
Martina,
so hard to pose on that kind of floor. But yeah, just making sure you just step on stage with that complete confidence.
Martin, I look forward to see what you do in the pro ranks, and congratulations again. Okay, we're gonna finish off on men's physique. So this is, I think I can pronounce your name is Tariq. I hope I pronounced it correctly. But yeah, once again, not only the IFBB Pro Card winner, but also the men's physique overall champion. And then once again, there were 6 or 7 IFBB Pro Card winners for this category, and you've gone there and you've taken the overall title. So huge well done for yourself. So we're looking through his pose at the moment. We've seen a few little things obviously for transition. So we're gonna bring it back to the front in a moment, and I'll let you take over, Emma.
Yeah. Firstly, love the confidence and the intensity as he walks in. This crossover transition that we do right at the very beginning is actually one of my favorites, especially if it's an athlete that has keeps a volume through the delts. I think it always just looks so super impressive and it's quite powerful. Front position, I mean, look at the midsection there. It's like you chiseled out perfectly. We've got lat, we've got shoulder, and he looks like one of those athletes that has more than enough mass for this division, which kind of means you naturally just don't have to pose as hard to make yourself look bigger. So you kind of have a slightly easier time of presenting yourself now. In this front position, I would maybe have liked to have seen just a little bit more external rotation through the delts. They're slightly dropping down inwards. But this for me, especially, in an amateur lineup, if you're not presenting yourself properly, but the physique again is a standout physique, and it's quite clear to see you've got, the best V taper, the best abs, the best development through the top line, then you're kind of going to get away with it. But when you cross over into the pro ranks, this is where you're going to get exposed. So I would just I would just suggest and recommend just making sure that you get full volume out of that top line and don't lose or sacrifice the delts. Now, this transition we've obviously covered before. We'll let him continue to play and we'll come back to that first transition. It's super important, obviously, with this men's physique division, you don't get heaps of time to work through your transitions, right? You've got to move through them quick. But we need to be so practiced that when we hit those transitions and we move through them, we're there for a picture and we move on. So make sure that you practice them to a level where you can execute them in a split second and then keep it moving on, move on to the next one. Now, in this rear position, for me, the feet are a little bit too wide. They're really wide. I think we can definitely bring them in a little bit more, and it'll just give just a little bit more of a finished flow to the physique. I mean, the taper looks fantastic. The muscle density through the back and the posterior chain is great. I would maybe just look at dropping the arms down just a touch potentially, and externally rotating through that top line. So a really good key point in this rear position is to think about lifting your chest, your breastbone up towards the ceiling, because what that does is it kind of opens the top line almost like a waterfall towards the judges. So we open backwards and over. So we do get a little bit more volume through these delts, because I feel like the delts look a little bit flat through that highest part of the delt. So I'd like to just see them looking a little bit more bubbly through that top line.
Come back to the front.
Nice push down here, nice moments. This is nice. This transition's really nice. No awkward footwork, hitting that front pose, transitioning perfectly from the front. Now let's just pause on this transitional pose here. So he's going to finish it off and slightly straighten through the front arm. But what he does is he kind of covers the torso, and he doesn't quite finish off the pose. So let's just continue and watch him move quite here. Yes. Now, the right arm is too bent. We've lost the tricep and the delt, what we were showcasing condition wise, and the left arm is coming too high up. Now, in this position, what you want to do is you want to feel like the back bicep is almost cupping behind the rear pec. So what we want to see is volume and density through the right pec, but we don't want the right arm, sorry, the left pec and the left arm. We don't want the right hand. We don't want the left hand to cover the right pec. Does that make sense? Yeah, this is quite nice. I like it, but I would like to see the left hand dropped a little bit lower so we could actually see the midsection, because he's covering it at the moment. And just not, don't, we never want to close down the chin and the pec, right? So at the moment, the pec is pretty much connected to the chin. So the elbow is very much so pointing forwards. I'd open the elbow up a little bit more. It's going to give us a little bit more Latin taper as well. And I always make sure with the guys that we never place the hand behind the head, like on the back of the skull, because it pulls the chin down and forwards, and we don't want that. We want to place the fist as far down the back of the neck as possible to really open up this part of the frame. It's going to give more thickness and density rather than being here. We want to be open, and I want to make this look like the space here as well, so we're not crunching down on the pose too much.
I want to bring up 2 points here. What is your thoughts then? Because this transition for the front and back is showing two poses, and the first pose wasn't executed to its full potential. And we've seen that one done with other pros where they do that, put the arm down, show the tricep, and a transition to the back. This one is tricep pose and then another one showcasing the obliques. Now, is it too much doing two poses in that transition?
Yeah, I think with the pros that we've watched recently, they haven't hung around in the side poses too much. But what I will say is when Tariq comes round to the front again, he doesn't add a side transition in. So it's almost like he's getting his two poses in now, because when he gets to the back, he comes straight back round to the front. So I think timing wise, because of that, it keeps the routine in alignment with how much time he should be spending. And then he's still able to get those two first transitions in. So I definitely wouldn't do two transitions to the back and then another transition to get around, like a pose transition. I wouldn't push it that much. So you typically, you want to keep an eye on your timing. Maybe this is his better side to pose on as well. So he may have thought, I'm just going to do two here, then I'm going to keep it moving, and then I'm going to whip straight back around to the front.
And my second point is with the back pose, we can see that the right shoulder is slightly more up than the left. So what's the best way then to ensure that you have no mirror in front of you, that you know both shoulders are in line?
It comes down to practice, and it comes down to critiquing yourself when you're practicing. The best thing to do, there's two options here. If you have access to a studio that has a rear mirror where you can see your rear poses, then that's fantastic, because you can adjust yourself. But if you are someone that relentlessly has one side higher than the other, I've got a client and we've been working together for 12 months now, and he still needs to give himself a checkpoint of right side needs to lift up more, because just sometimes it's just the way we're shaped, or we've got a slight imbalance where one side sits lower than the other. So you either have to do some kind of mechanical work to correct it, but yeah, that right shoulder is really high and the left side is dropping down. The other thing you can do is record your practice, critique it, find where you are not presenting yourself so well, rinse and repeat, keep working through it, do 10 rounds of it, and make sure that 9 out of 10 times you've got that top line nice and straight. If I was his posing coach, every time in practice I'd be screaming at him left lat, and making sure that you have that final checkpoint in the head. If the body's not doing it naturally, you need to mentally remind yourself in that rear position, as I'm setting up, got to make sure that left lat goes higher, and knowing what that feels like as well. So when your posing practice is happening, making sure that you're connecting and checking in with the body when you're in each pose, so you know how it feels, because he probably feels like he's straight, and I would imagine he says to his posing coach, oh, I feel like my top line is straight. No, you need to feel like your left shoulder is too high, and then you'll probably be in balance.
Okay, well, let's finish off then with our last person of the day. What rating are you going to give himself?
I am going to go with, I think I'm going to go B minus.
There we go. So I think the key things were really the legs being too wide when it
In the
came to the
rear
back
position.
pose. Focus on bringing the left shoulder up so everything is in line. As you mentioned as well with transition, which was obviously showcasing the tricep, trying obviously feel a little
Clean
bit
it
of
up.
convention there, get it
Yeah.
clean, exactly.
And again, it's the standard has been so high today, that everyone's getting pro cards, and the presentation, the fundamentals have been very, very strong. But these are like smaller details, right? These are the details where when you need to correct these, you've just won because the physique is amazing, the stagecraft and the presentation is superb. But in order now to take yourself up to another level, and imagine on stage on that day, he was probably like an A-star when it came to posing and presentation. But when we're going to put you in a different lineup in a pro division, the standard is different. So that means, there's work to be done.
Definitely. Well, look, huge congratulations to all the IFBB Pro Card winners at the NPC Junior Nationals. Really look forward to seeing what you guys do in the pro ranks next weekend. Well, in fact, this weekend coming, we've got the Italy show, the Flex Pro weekend. So I know there's pro cards up for grabs there. We've also got a pro show. So we're gonna go back to Europe. I think we've got some of the UK competitors competing over there. So we will be focusing more on the Italy show and also see some of the new IFBB Pro Card winners across the other divisions. So Emma, we'll wrap up there and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.